Go ahead and call this fiscal year 2024 budget workshop to order, May 2nd, 2023. We do have all 5 commissioners in attendance, but being that it's a workshop, we won't be taking any action today, so we'll get right into it. Up first, we've got Bonnie Berry for a budget overview, and she's going to walk us through where we're at and where we hopefully want to be. Hi, Bonnie.
Hello, Chairman and Commissioners. Good to see you all again. I will just quickly go over kind of where we are. Obviously, these numbers are going to change. We're still pretty early in the process. So if you flip to what is page 2 of 8, it's actually the 3rd page because the cover page isn't numbered. But I just kind of wanted to go over these numbers. Revenue. So these are general fund. I shouldn't say general fund numbers. These are our revenues that are to be distributed between general fund, component units, and outside agencies. It does not include the grant revenue. So we're about 57 million. The expenditures, that includes all of the requests, and the Castle Rock's request for the hospital is included in that number. So we have expenditures of roughly 61 million, shortfall of 3.9 million. Grant revenues, which I understand Christina has updated a little bit since I finalized this. 4.2 million, grant expenditures, 4 million. So we're a little bit over on our grants. That should be a little bit of a negative number, not a positive number. And because grants are always a shortfall because of the match money. And then our total shortfall on this is 3.7 million. This doesn't include any of the cash carryover. We are projecting a very significant cash carryover. Now that we have finished the month, I will run another cash carryover projection for you, but I'm anticipating it will be close to the one that I ran before. But we do need to have more discussions on how we're going to be distributing the mill levy before we can actually come up with a final number for that, because that's going to impact funds that we have already collected.
Just be clear, not include cash carryover?
This does not include cash carryover,
Okay.
no. So it is up to the board whether or not you would like to use cash carryover to supplement this.
Sure.
This is just revenues versus expenditures, and this is where you are.
Just a quick question also with respect to the revenue, as the conversation you and I had yesterday. How was the estimate done for that revenue that will be raised through the mill levy? Did you do it based on the model that you had there, or?
I did on the low end. So what I budgeted for this, what we were collecting was, we collected the highest amount that we have collected last month on the minerals, which was over 1.5 million. The lowest amount we collected was a little over 1 million. And I used for this projection, which Dave gave you and me updated numbers, well, his projections today. So we can incorporate that, and we should be getting the mineral number for the collection for May here before our next workshop. So I'll incorporate that into, but I used an average, I used 1.35 million per month is what I used to project that for this. So that's where we are on this. So it could be lower, it could be higher. We actually won't know till about next year this time.
After it's all over with.
Exactly. So that's that page. Moving on to the second page, we just have some comparative information. I like to see comparative information. Our revenues are up significantly, which is expected. Our cash carryover is expected to be very significant because of the revenues being much higher. So it's no surprise that our revenues are projected to be up so much. And then departments requests are higher. Component units are actually down a little bit, and then outside aid, and that is actually because the hospital, the 3 million for the hospital is included in there, so that's why they're down. And then outside agencies is down slightly too. So we're actually looking at a much lower shortfall for fiscal year 24 requests than we are compared to the adjusted budget for 23, which is no surprise because we've had some pretty major budget amendments. And then grant revenues, and then shortfall, and then overall total shortfall. So that is all I have for you. We have a very tight schedule. I tried to cram it all in so we can get out of here at 5. I had to eliminate breaks and I had to shorten some people's presentations. So I'm hoping some of the later ones will go a little bit faster because I did, as you requested, tried to put them in order from the higher requests to the lower requests, except where there were some conflicts and people had requested different times. So hopefully we can get through this and get out of here at 5 o'clock, but you're welcome to keep things short if you want, and we could take breaks if we get ahead. So I'll leave that up to you, but the rest of the time is just for your meetings with the elected officials and the department heads. So if you don't have any questions for me, we can jump right into that. Are there any questions for me before we jump into the next?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bonnie, so you projecting the cash carryover at this point in time at 10,840,000. Do you remember what it was last year at the end of the year?
About 5 million,
Was it 5? Okay, thank you.
close to that.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact amount, but around 5. Yeah, our revenues were much, much, much higher than anticipated. That's why we are up so much.
And then what do we have in the reserves right now?
20
Something.
the general reserves, I think, are low 20s, and then we still have quite a bit of the ARPA. So it's broken down between general reserves and the ARPA reserves. And we had budgeted to spend, I think, 2.4 million last year out of the ARPA, but we're gonna have some carryover for that. That was originally a little over 8 million. And then we're in the low 20s for general.
Thank you.
Does that include the pill? Where'd the pill go? Went into payroll and we used it up or what?
I will have to get with Christina on that. I believe that I believe the commission had decided to use that to go towards payroll, but we'll have to follow up with that
We had
because
two batches of 3.4 million each.
There was supposed to be another pill.
Yes.
Included.
yes. So we got the 3.4 last year, and I'm not sure if that is going to be allocated to wages for the current fiscal year we're in. So I'll have to talk to Christina about
Well, we
that.
got that ARPA.
That's the ARPA pill, the 3 point. Oh, you mean the pill coming up or the ARPA pill that we
regular
already
pill.
received? Oh, the regular
ARPA pill.
The regular pill is already allocated to wages.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Any other questions?
Good job. Thank you.
All right.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Thanks, Bonnie.
perfect. Thank you. And I will just have these up on I have the detailed budget requests and those can be up on the screens. Do you want me to have those up on the screens or do you want the presenter to be up on the screen and just look at that as needed? Did you have a chance? You probably didn't have a chance to go in and look at that. I didn't get those up till yesterday. It just shows you what is. It just shows you the account detail of all of those requests. So the way they're presented in your packet is just by roll-up code. So your payroll, operating, and capital, they're broken out by payroll, operating, and capital. And then they actually show the line item detail on the spreadsheets there on the screen. So I can just- we'll just, yeah, we'll have that. Okay. All right.
Okay, looks like we have Karen Kelly with juvenile probation up first. We're doing really good on time today. We're already 8 minutes behind, so
I'll go fast.
good to see you. And welcome. Take it away.
We are requesting to continue funding for our program. There was a slight increase primarily due to the increased costs of payroll benefits.
Did you offer a COLA or something?
Not personally, I didn't offer that, but whatever came through. We also changed one of our positions from a part-time probation agent to a part-time secretary. So I actually had hoped it would have gone down, but with the increased cost with insurance and benefits and things like that, it actually increased.
Any questions, commissioners? like you're getting let off easy
All right, thank you, thank you.
after all that. Next, we have Jean with the majority of the day here.
Bringing it back on time. Gene, talk fast.
We'll try to keep you guys on time. So start at Road and Bridge. I think the easiest thing to do is fuel's not expected to go down. Utilities aren't expected to go down. So what I did in my budget for those two in the operating is actually go through and figure out how much, try to best guess of what fuel was based off the last 2 years. The main thing is the capital being up, over 500%. That's for the night oil tool building. That's, 4.3 million or whatever it is, total on that. We're also redoing the 2 blades that we've always done every year. We always purchase 2 new blades and then get a payback on those when we sell them in 6 years. And then we also need to buy a couple additional wings. We have 6 wings and 6 dozer blades that we need to replace. Just age fractures and stuff like that in them. So. Any questions on that one?
I'm searching, Gene, sorry. Here-
Okay, no problem.
There it is. What was that night oil? I know the purchase was already done, but then obviously the renovations.
Yeah, 4.6. I don't want to say. I can tell you the exact number here. It should be in the
5.23, is that?
5.2,
Yeah.
4.889,
Yeah.
so 4.9.
Okay.
And then the other thing, if you actually look at the capital, like I said, there's the 2 blades. We've always did a 3-year lease on those blades. But all of us have kind of talked, and it's up to you guys, but with interest rates being over 6%, that was back when they were 1% and 2%. It was a lot easier to lease, over 3 years and then recoup that. So that total blade price for 2 new blades is actually in this, plus the 2 lease payments from 2 years ago and 1 year ago.
Purchasing 2 new blades?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that keeps them on our rotation, our 6-year rotation. We replace 2 every year, and we get a guaranteed buyback from CAT on those
Oh,
for use on that. And then what's nice about that is for almost everything, it's covered under warranty. So you have low year, $90,000, high year, $185,000 in warranty work that happens to them, sometimes transmissions, whatever, but they usually cover. Even this last one, we had an issue with, they thought the operator was shutting the blade off and not allowing it to regen itself. And we were able to go into the computer and go, no, that's not causing what was happening is when he was going in, trying to plow snow, it was dying. We did a little bit of training with the operator, but the regen and everything and the burning off on the new filter and everything was all covered by CAT. So
you're leasing them, and then at the end of that lease, you're buying them? Is that what these?
No.
No.
in
Okay.
3 years, how we typically did is in 3 years, we did a 3-year equal payment. We would own those at the end of 3 years and then we'd sell them back at 6.
I got you. Just curious. Any questions on Road and Bridge? Small ticket item there.
Yep.
You're worth it though, Gene.
Thanks. Sad part is I'm not covered in that one. It's engineering. Facility maintenance. So as you guys know, this is the one that takes care of all the buildings, everything like that. The majority of this is in utilities. Rob and I went through that, and what I did is I pulled all the utilities for a year on our big buildings, and then I just sorted them, and then I went through and just said, okay, 3% increase in this, 5% in this, 8% in this, everything that everybody's announced over the years. And that's where you'll see the majority of the operating is, 38.31%. Actually in that, we did up under operating the travel and education, a little bit, that's basically been funded at $1,000. We upped that to 4,000 on that. We'd like to actually send 2 guys down to Denver to a boiler training school and do that kind of stuff with them. We have one really good person and another one coming along that's been trained by him and mentored, but in order to finish it off, we need to send them to that one. So it is a week-long course. And just so you guys know that that one light item under operating, I know it's not, well, I won't say a lot at 1.4 million, but that includes all the building utilities. And stuff like that. It's just not specific buildings. It's all the buildings, all 13 of them. Gets rolled up into that code.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tillman.
Well, the question I have, because we never had any pre-workshop or anything. How's everybody figuring payroll? Just same old, or are they figuring a?
Payroll is flat. That's, HR puts that in for us and
Oh,
there's no
okay.
cost, there's no COLA or anything on that. They
Okay,
did do an 8%, I think, on insurance. But I'm not sure about that, but I think it was an
Okay, well, I
8%
was
on
just
insurance,
curious
but
'cause I
no
didn't
COLAs,
know.
there's no COLAs or anything for that. It's actually just real numbers. Of course, they take into account step increases and stuff like
Yeah,
that for
yeah.
age. Years of service, for those people, but other than that, there's nothing in there.
Any other questions on facilities maintenance?
Okay, on the Parks and Rec, the majority of that, in payroll is the extra full-time person that you guys granted. That moves us from 2 to 3 full-time people. Just so you guys know, we opened up all of our summer, 3 and 6 month ones. We got 4 applicants. So that's awesome out of 6 people. So if you guys know of anybody that's over 18 that wants to mow lawns and do that and be outside, 99% of the time, yeah, I would volunteer for that most time too. And get to see all the parks in the county. Please let them know to apply. The other thing that is the majority of it is capital. We do have some ball field repairs that we need to do. We also want to buy some other equipment. A lot of that equipment is 20 years old. 3 years ago, the commission allowed me to buy some bigger lawnmowers and a Ventrac, which is a multi-use tool. We'd like to buy a couple more of those. These are outright purchases. The last ones were 3 years, so I waited for that to fall off before we asked them. With those, the nice thing about it is because it's all under public works, we use the Ventrac almost exclusively for snow removal out at the Justice Center and stuff like that. So it's not just used for, I don't even know how long the summer is anymore. We'll just say 6 months. Spring, summer, fall is 6 months, winter's 22. With that, we try to use these and get them outfitted so we can do multiple things with them. The skid steer that you guys allow us to buy last year has multiple attachments that could be used by road and bridge, parks, facilities, and all of those different places combined. So that's where that's at.
So that's a pretty substantial increase to that department I would assume based off what your notes are indicating there's just deferred maintenance and.
Yeah, a
we're
lot
gonna
of it's
bring
deferred
everything back
maintenance.
up to speed.
Well, and it's not, unfortunately, it's not everything. Some of it is pond controls, trying to get everything so it makes it easier on everybody where we have automatic leveling and pond controls like kick on and off, lining the ponds. The other ones, like we said, is, infield mix to do softball fields and baseball fields. You haul it out of Denver. It's, 60 grand, doesn't get you very much, but that needs to be done because it hasn't been done in about 7 years. And just to have a couple stockpiles around. We need to improve some of the fencing out at Crossroads. How they play on the fields now, how the fences were originally set up was for when the college played up there before they used the high school and the junior high. And we have some fencing, so we need to switch everything and put some more chain link fence around. Some roof repairs, stuff like that. Some of this we've talked about in the capital committee and we can defer that and do other things. There's probably a different presentation, but yeah, that's the parks. And we also did a lot of, I don't want to say wing and a prayer, but with the track club, we have some stuff that is deferred maintenance wise and other things that we want to attract more people up there. A lot of the stuff, if the shooting complex goes through, can be just transferred down there. Some of it's trailer mounted, some of it's house mounted, but it can be moved. So various things like that, just trying to bring it up to speed. The 5 stand is our major thing up there. That's what everybody uses. That needs a sunshade. It needs to be sided, different stuff like that. So.
Being on the left of your budgets,
Mhm.
assume that's a priority numbering system.
On the capital. What are you looking at?
Yeah, on the very bottom.
No, it's just.
Just
tying it to
numbers.
Oh.
What number we tied it to up there is all, sorry.
What account it goes
Yeah.
into.
Gotcha.
It just summarizes them and kind of collects everything together.
Mr. Chairman.
Newbie, you gotta help me with these things. Commissioner Shanefield.
Jean, with a lot of these things that are coming up to be fixed and repaired and everything, I feel like these have been kind of put on the back burner for a number of years because we've been so low with our revenues. Is that right?
They have, it's, I don't want to say they're in disrepair by any means, because
Right.
facilities and parks do a great job of doing things. But a lot of that we have deferred on, the hard part about it is, if you look at the skeet upgrades, the trap machines, the 5 stands, and the grouse trailer, if you add those up, that's about $100,000 if I did the math right, a little over $130,000. That's stuff that, yes, we need, gonna be deferred for a couple more years, sure. The grouse trailer is one of those things where we can really attract people up there and actually use it for what it is and can be moved to, wherever it is. It actually shoots flurries off 6 different trap machines at a time. So it's one of those things. The hard part that we do not want to do though is we want to encourage people to go up there, but we don't not want to take care of anybody going to let it fly or somebody like that, a private industry. So we're kind of trying to walk that thin line to encourage people, because right now, if you go up there, it's the same 10 to 12 guys every Sunday, every Wednesday night, shooting skeet. They do the 5 stand, and I know there's been some, hey, have we get more people up there, stuff like that, and that's what we're trying to do.
Any other questions on Parks and Rec? Okay. Custodial.
Custodial, pretty straightforward until you look at capital. Commercial vacuums are expensive. That's all I can say. They're about $1,000 a piece. And we just need to start replacing them on a more orderly fashion. It's been a long time since we've replaced any of them, and they're starting to show their wear, and parts are becoming hard to come by. So I put in there 5 new vacuums.
Finally, a decrease.
Yes.
We're winning.
Does that give me any credit for the other 3?
How is that working out with? I would assume, we're taking on more facilities like Night Oil and things like that. I mean, able to keep up.
Yeah, we'll be able
That,
to
I
keep
mean,
up.
obviously
A
we're gonna
little
try
bit.
and offload some of these other.
Yeah, we'll
buildings.
offload some of the other buildings, but Road and Bridge only gets cleaned on Fridays. And that's how we'll kind of continue it. As garbage and stuff like that, we'll pick up ourselves. Under Road and Bridge, we also did put a ride on floor mop thing like you see at
Yeah.
Walmart and stuff like that for 10 grand. That will really help in the warehouse stuff and to try to keep it clean. The main thing when you go out to the facilities like Cat, Hone and stuff like that is everything has such small tolerance on it. You need to basically, if you move something out, you need to keep the floor completely cleaned back. Helps find leaks, helps do all kinds of stuff. The days of having a dingy, dark shop with, ages of dirt and grease on the floor are just impossible, because when you start kicking that minute dust up, it starts causing problems everywhere. So, but yeah, we should be able to keep up. That shouldn't be a problem. We'll figure that out and, flex some stuff. The nice thing is it's closer to our other buildings and it's not so spread out. So we'll be able to sub that right out of the Justice Center complex.
Questions on custodial? Engineering.
Engineering, same thing, payroll went up because of the new hire that you allowed us to use. That's in the last 2 weeks since he's been here has been almost invaluable. Water line leak happened. I was able to address that while we were paving and crack sealing and send him somewhere else instead of trying to, do the 40-mile loop and keep on everything. So that's helped out and just getting specs out and stuff like that. The capital that we need to do is we're going to have duplicate offices. Unfortunately, we're going to be over at Night Oil Tools, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. Don't know how that's going to work. And we're going to be over here. I think it's invaluable for us to be over here because there's a lot of organic conversations that happen with the department heads and elected officials at some point. And contrary to popular belief, the interstate goes in 2 directions, but not most people think it goes in 2 directions. So they never will come over there, which is a blessing and a curse, but we'll need to buy, a couple desks, couple office chairs, stuff like that to have in multiple locations. The other thing is we need to buy some additional software, AutoCAD, stuff like that, to completely tool up the Andy so that he can work efficiently.
What is your plan there? To split time? Is that what you were indicating between?
Yeah, between the buildings.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it works out. I don't know exactly how much time over here, how much time over there. But that's, trying to figure out a happy medium, between us going back and forth. I've talked to Tim a little bit on how to do that and different things where we can get laptops and just docking stations and stuff like that. But it'll be invaluable to be over there, and I'll see how much time really needs to be spent over here. But we're hoping that, it's like I said, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, don't know where we'll be. Obviously commission meetings, stuff like that, somebody needs to be around. You're over here. I'm over here almost every Tuesday anyway, so.
Questions on engineering? Looks like we're on to fleet.
Fleet, pretty much, flat across the board, in payroll, other than, a couple of salary increases for, years of service. Operating. Fleet buys all the fuel for everybody but the sheriff and road and bridge. So that's where the majority of the increase is. And then we also threw in the new, what are the new vehicles you got? The little crossover SUVs. No, the other one. Not the Traverses, what are they? Equinox. Anyway, some of the new ones we're getting, they have a battery that's internal to the passenger compartment, and they actually take a special charger to jump the batteries. So we actually need to buy another battery charger. Yes, of course they do. And then we, Phil and Travis, repair rock chips and stuff like that themselves. And he needs to get a new kit. It's starting to lose its vacuum on it. So that's about $900, but it saves us tons of money in just being able to repair chips instead of windshields and stuff. So, but the majority of that's in fuel. If you look. 22.5%, it's almost $30,000.
Questions on fleet maintenance, commissioners? It's gonna be an easy day. I'm getting the feeling.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions on fleet maintenance, but I do have some questions on the overall department or everything under Public Works. And Gene, having gone through this with you a little bit and worked through it, obviously we're looking at a situation where our requests are always higher than what our revenues are. If you had to go through and cut in some of these areas, you had said that there were a few areas that you might be able to do some of that. I would just ask that you look at doing some of those things and where it could possibly be done, and then bring it back to us so that we can look at it as we're working farther forward within the budget.
Right.
And I think we'll try and I would ask that each of the departments that we're doing do that. I mean, obviously they've given us a request, but I think everybody's going to have a little bit of fluff in there somewhere. If we can have you guys look at taking some of it out before we have to do that, I think we may be better off. So if you just look at some of those areas where you think you might be able to cut some of those expenditures. I would appreciate.
That's no problem. From my standpoint, it's a philosophical discussion.
Yeah.
If I go over on fuel or if I go over on, utilities, have to come back for a budget amendment. So I don't care either way. We've done that. I've done that both ways. Where we put it in there, not spend it and rolled it back over, or we just came back for a budget amendment like I had to do this year. So that's no problem.
Yeah, and we don't want to be in a situation where we're doing constant budget amendments, or at least I don't want to be in that situation. But I think that there are areas where we may not have to do that. And as I say, it's looking at the overall budget for the county, a $3.9 million deficit's not really that much in what we're looking at. We haven't had any discussions as to what we're going to do potentially with carryover and things of that nature. But I think if we can get a better picture from everyone and have everybody, at the bare bones of where they can be and sustain their operations, provide the service that they feel like they need to, we're better off. that's probably what most of this is, but I've been there, there's just always just a little bit.
Sure. And the hard part with that, and like you and I discussed last week or whatever, 77% of it's payroll. So that's going to be, and then the other big one's capital. And the capital committee reviewed that, and our whole entire capital request is in there, so that can be pared down to what actually can be moved around to different things. And Bonnie and Christina and myself will do it at some other point, do a specific thing just on capital. Because that's its own beast in itself. Operating 6% of the budget, something like that. So we can make some definite changes, in fuel and utilities and stuff like that, but as far as a significant effect, it's not, but we can
when
pare
we
it down
add
to nothing.
All of the departments together, those little things.
Sure.
Are gonna add up to something, so hopefully somewhat more substantial.
Right.
I think that's just kind of what we're trying to work through. I mean, today's goal, I guess, is just more kind of informative on where you guys are at. And obviously, we're gonna have some tough decisions to make, and we need to have those discussions as far as cost of living and
Mhm.
carryover and what we intend to, if we intend to use to, help balance the budget with that or not. And if we don't, then we're looking at, 3.6 or 7, wherever the numbers line up, of a deficit. So it's tough to sit here and go line item by line item and or tell you it looks good, on to the next one.
No, it's not that hard. It's a couple words. It looks good.
But I think more
The actions
conversation.
sound a
will
lot
come.
louder than the words do, that's the
Yes.
problem.
Yeah, that's no problem. I can do that.
It's obviously a new beginning for some of us too. So
Sure. And especially for the new ones, if you want me to sit down or you want me to anything else, let me know. I'm always available. So
Gene, how many millions would it take to get the air conditioning in this building to work?
what are the odds? Here. I know a guy.
a guy. Yes, there is a couple guys. Yeah, that's a big undertaking. Believe it or not, a majority of this facility still runs off a chiller and a cooling tower. So it's not exactly new technology by any means.
Just change the word with that. That all have to have a heater.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I was at 68 when we walked in here, but I'll say this tongue in cheek, there's a lot of hot air in this room that's hard to compliment, hard to bounce off people. So
We can keep Mary in line. We'd be cooled off. in our
Yeah.
flickery.
Hawaiian shirt and you'd be just right. Wouldn't be too hot then.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Shanefield.
I had something I just wanted to bring up, and it's not in regard to Gene's budgets, but I just wanted to point out, like, we had some pretty in-depth conversations with the last commission about reserves and where they should be at, and I think that might be it might be a good time to bring some of that information back. If we're sitting in the 20s with reserves, we've got $8.3 million-ish for ARPA sitting there. We've got 10.8 million, almost $11 million in carryover, with that projected overage of 3.7 million plus a 6% COLA, which would put us at almost 1.3 million. We're at 5,852,965 that is carryover still. And so I think that we also need to recognize that these department heads, I think they always have an idea of where they can trim things, but they've also cut significantly over the past 5 years. And I think that in looking at this, our budget picture right now looks pretty rosy. It's not projected to take a huge dump, knock on wood. However, I just think that that's something to keep in mind is that, there's a certain point, and we had this discussion in depth between the previous commission, that we're supposed to be utilizing taxpayer dollars within our community and not just holding on to that. And I think we got to figure out what that balance looks like for us and what's a healthy bottom line in reserves. And then also start talking about what we're going to do with that additional ARPA money. So just wanted to throw that out.
Mr. Chairman, I couldn't agree more. And that's one of the things that I've mentioned to our treasurer. I think it would be appropriate for him to bring forth the current county investment policy along with the guidelines that were set by the prior commissions with respect to where reserves were set at that point in time. And this board should be looking at where we believe those reserves should be so we can start looking at this. So I couldn't agree more. I think that's the starting point. I think that and determining a good number, which I'm comfortable with for our revenues, is part of the main ideas with getting it started.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Obviously, we got to get into the weeds on everyone's different philosophy when it comes to budgeting. It just felt like a rushed process this year with the change of the guard, and here we are. We'll let them plead their case and then we'll make the tough decisions after.
And I can't speak
Rema.
for everybody, but I'd rather me cut my budget where I see fit than you guys say, hey, 20% off of everything.
Absolutely.
That's a rough one to do. I've done that and it's not fun.
Any other questions for Gene?
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Gene. Appreciate your time. Next up, we've got the sheriff. Good afternoon, Sheriff. You're still awake back there? We're warm in here.
It's actually kind of cool back there if you sit back that way.
It's kind of cold back there.
Just flip the chambers around.
Sensitive subject.
You just want me to go down or are you gonna?
I'm trying.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, take it away, Sheriff. Everyone good?
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, in the sheriff's office itself, not detention, emergency management, you can see a total increase of 3.22 that came down to payroll mainly, just because like, Gene said, you have people that are reaching milestones with the county, plus we have certifications of advanced and professional peace officer and or peace officer in that one. Detention, it's 1.8. And again, payroll increased. That has to do with, again, the certifications and people that have been there. The reason it's not as high is we did have a few positions that we attritioned that we had spoke about that I didn't think were necessary. So that's in there. The operating detention center, you are going to see that go up. That's cost of food. And we just took an average 5%, but who knows? We have to keep the inmates fed and that's the best we can do there. Emergency management, it actually went down because we attritioned one position out of there and it seems to be working well. And animal control is 1.34% total, and that has to do with payroll also.
You're pretty flat.
Try to keep it that way.
Questions for the sheriff, commissioners?
And if I could also, Mr. Chairman, just because there are new board members. When I took office, the sheriff's office had 116 positions, I believe. We're down to 93. And in comparison with what they call the big four, the other big four counties, Sweetwater being one, Natrona County Sheriff's Office has 163 employees, Laramie County has 186, and Campbell County, which is relatively close to Sweetwater County, has 159.
Wow.
And we have 93. So that's what we've been working on. And it's just a shout out to the staff and the men and women that are working here. So we're able to do it and keep the services where they are. And I believe they're a little bit higher than when I took over.
I have a question.
Credit to you
So
as
is that?
Go ahead.
Does that include your deputies in the county and the detention staff, or are they in the next payroll, I guess? Yeah,
Nope.
okay. So the sheriff's department 93 would be your deputies and,
The one where it says sheriff's payroll operating,
right,
that's the actual patrol deputies.
yeah.
And then
okay.
where it says detention center, that's our detention
Okay.
deputies.
All right. Thank you.
You're talking your total staff. You were.
Total staff is 93. That includes civilian detention and patrol.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment.
Slaughter.
Sheriff, it looks to me like in looking at the four departments that you've got, you're looking at basically a 3.7% increase in total. I think that's remarkable. I think you've come forward with an excellent budget for us. I would ask the same thing that I asked of Gene, if there are any areas where you see, yes, you want this, but you could potentially cut. Same thing.
Absolutely.
Just looking at those. But I think overall, I would have expected a lot more than a 3.7% increase request from the sheriff's department. So excellent job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I find that pretty remarkable myself the big four, as you alluded to, but especially just under your leadership, taking it from 116 to 93 and still being comparable to someone that's, 160 employees. It's a stand-up job and one that I appreciate from a financial perspective as far as fiscal responsibility. Any comments or questions for the sheriff? We'll keep it short and sweet.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Have
time.
good, have a good afternoon. Hopefully you're not here too long.
County Attorney's Office is up next. Good afternoon, Mr. Aaron Mosby.
Good afternoon. How are you?
There goes the neighborhood.
Here it goes. Buckle up. Here's that long afternoon for my huge budget. Thank you. I think if you look, our payroll is probably a significant jump, but it's really not that significant. We got our raises where my staff went up last year's budget, and we're planning on moving one attorney up to promote to a grade 31, which is where all the other ones are. My feeling is that if you do the same work, you should be on the same grade. And the same thing goes with the assistants. So we have 3 assistants that would be moving up. And then another deputy will lateral at 6 months. He's on probation, probationary period. And then 2 other assistants are going to lateral within 6 months. So that's where the payroll jump is coming from. The next bigger jump is the dues and subscriptions. Westlaw, that's our bread and butter for research. They've jumped up about $500 a month for theirs. And then we had to add on to Judicial Dialogue. That's our software program. We're trying to become cloud-based. We're eating up a lot of space with the tech department. So we're trying to become cloud-based, and Judicial Dialogue is a company that we use right now. So we're in their beta program that they're trying out. It's cheap, and we're finding out you get what you pay for, but it's something that we're right now we're sticking with. And I'll tell you, Tim and IT they've been incredible helping us with that. And Tim's been on we've done a few promos where other companies have tried to sold us their cloud-based, but they're very, very expensive. This one is cheap. A lot of reasons. And so, but we're sticking with it. We're gonna try to stick with it. The other addition to operating is new membership for deputies for National District Attorneys Association. This is something that they had, a few have been in the past, been members of it. I wanted my whole staff to be members. They have access to a lot of resources, including policy manuals, research tabs, and we get discounts on every webinar or CLE that we attend that would technically pay for this with just one visit. And then as far as capital is concerned, we need a copier. Copier in Green River. It's got Band-Aids right now. So we've had to put static mats down because you shuffle your feet a little bit and you go hit the button. It's just that bad. And of course, copiers, scanners, printers, that's pretty much our only capital. That's it.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tillman.
how many total staff do you have then?
We have 10 deputies right now, 10 assistants. Does that count victim coordinators? 3 victim coordinators. 2 of those victim coordinators are paid for by grant. 1 receives, this county picks up benefits. They're part-time. And a legal investigator. So pretty small. I'm not shrinking like the sheriff, but once again, I didn't put in for a clothing stipend. I kind of left that alone, but not the school district.
Well,
Anyhow.
if he's got less people to bring you clients,
Yeah,
then shouldn't your budget be going
well,
down?
you would think. It somehow doesn't work that way. I don't know. I don't know how that works, but. So really, the bump has really been the payroll, and since it'll be the first year with my new salary. And once again, we have the state pays 50,000 for my salary and 30,000 for each one of my deputies. That goes to the county. I don't know how long that's gonna
I
last.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
For each
Yeah.
of your deputies?
For each one of our deputies, the state pays 30,000. When they switch from the district attorneys system over to a county attorney system, there's only 2 counties that have district attorneys. That's Laramie County and Natrona. And so we have become state deputies. And so they feel that the negotiation at that time was that they would pay for half of the salaries or 30,000 if it went higher than 100,000. So each county attorney gets $50,000 that goes to the county, and then the rest are 30,000.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's under 160 with the with the state. I don't know how long it's going to last. There's always talk about trying to take it away, but as the association, we're always fighting to keep it and actually raise it, because I think it should be. But if you guys want to get those county commissioners association in on that, we're all for it. State should have to pony up for us doing the people's work.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Thanks for sticking with us.
Hey.
We think you're pretty valuable. I mean,
I got good people.
for an old sheeper, you know?
Yeah. I gotta learn somewhere. Anything else? I'm good.
We're good.
All right.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem.
All right, we're plugging right along, 20 minutes ahead. Everyone good?
Don't get too optimistic.
Easy there.
We know how it changes.
Welcome back, Tim.
All right, well, good to be here. Thanks. It's been a long day, huh? All right, so just a disclosure, I believe my payroll budget will actually have to be increased another just about 40,000. Because one of my staff decided he wanted to get married and another one decided to have a baby. So that's going to increase the benefits a little bit. So this will have to be adjusted, and it's probably better to adjust it in the budget than through an amendment later. So
Have you thought of replacing them? Just kidding.
might end up with someone with a bigger family. I don't know. It might be more expensive. And we're glad to have what we have. So,
Yes,
but other than that, payroll is pretty flat. It'll actually be down about $12,000. There's a couple of things going on in IT that are causing the increase. One is there seems to be an increase in all of our maintenance contracts. Those seem to be just going up, and there's not a lot we can do other than find another solution. So I'm always evaluating that, but there's a couple projects that need to happen. And one is we need to migrate to Microsoft 365. Right now, everything we do is on premise. Microsoft 365 is where Microsoft hosts our Exchange. They also give us OneDrive, Teams. It's an improved security. And they also handle the upgrades. We find that our Exchange environment is attacked pretty regularly, and we have to stay on top of those updates. And it's a matter of time. We got hit once where someone actually got into the server, but we were able to stop it before they were able to do anything. So having Microsoft do that's recommended. What that does to our Microsoft licensing, it increases it from just under 90,000 to $125,000 a year. So it's an increase of about 37,000, and then an additional $10,000 to have professional services come in and help us with that migration. So that would be an increase of 47,000. So that's in operating. Another increase is we are being asked by our insurance, cyber insurance and just about everybody out there to use multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is when you have a second device you've seen it when you log into something and then it sends you a text and says, here's your code. So we definitely have to do that with our administrative accounts, but also anything that's vulnerable on the outside. And so that's an increase of about $13,000. But the security benefits of that are huge. Stolen credentials are the number one way people get into networks. They achieve those through either some sort of phishing, or they may grab your credentials from something like they compromise a system, grab the credentials, and then are able to decode those. And so we will be, I really think we need to do that.
What if you're gonna go to a fingerprint or an eyeball instead of the 50 steps?
Well, there are different options and we'll try to find the easiest. It's not easy. Security just makes life harder, but it does make it safer. So ransomware is huge. People are getting taken hostage by ransomware constantly, and ransoms are anywhere from 60 to $200,000. And they like organizations of our size because we can come up with the money, but we often don't have the expertise to be able to combat that. And so we do see a lot of attempts on that. So our security is pretty important, and we do invest quite well in security, and are grateful for the support we've had in the past of being able to do that. So a lot of our cost is in security and maintaining the security and safety and integrity of our network and our data. So and anyone can get hit, but on our capital projects, we do have a remote firewall, which are some firewall stuff that needs to be replaced. We have a wireless project, which is about $200,000. Our wireless system was put in 2012. The controllers are no longer supported coming July. If we needed to cut something, we could run unsupported for a year or two. It's working fine. So if we did need to cut, that's something we could maybe postpone for a little bit. The PC replacements, we moved those all to IT last year, and we got onto a replacement cycle. And so we'd like to continue that cycle. I think it works really well for us to kind of control all of that. And we have some catch up to do a little bit with the sheriff's office because they purchased everything on a lease like about 5 years ago. And so all of those computers came due last year, and we kind of split that in half. So we'll be replacing half of the mobile data terminals, which are the ones that go in the vehicles. Those are a little more pricey than just a normal laptop, but we're going to catch up on that this year. I think can be good. The phone system, there's several older phones that we still need to kind of finish that up. We could cut that back a little bit if we needed to, because they still kind of work, but we're seeing a lot of failures in those phones. We'd like to just get them all upgraded. And we are going to try to get the exterior doors done, which is an ARPA fund. It's not actually in this, it'll be in the grant budget. But we want all the exterior doors to be on the same system that we are at the Justice Center. And so that's a project that we're trying to get done this year, but just with the jail taking longer than I thought it would, it's something we'll be pushing into next year.
Talking about the courthouse or more?
The courthouse, the Health and Human Services building, and we'll add the Night Owl Tools building to that. We'll get it all. We'll start with the exterior doors and eventually try to get them all onto that system. So those are kind of, that's IT. And where our budget is. I think we're doing pretty good. I think we're only about 2.5% over last year, even with all of that, but.
Is there additional infrastructure needed for Nine Oil Tools, or is it all kind of existing, or does it need upgrade?
I think we put $500,000 into Gene's budget into that project to do that.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
And so the biggest expense is going to be getting the fiber into that building. We're looking at probably about $360,000 to get that fiber put in.
Wow.
So, but the rest of it there is fiber between two of the buildings, and but getting the door locks, cameras, wireless infrastructure, all that it's going to take a little bit.
Questions for IT commissioners?
What's your timeline on switching over to Microsoft 365? Our contract with Microsoft renews in October, which is the time we'll renew the contract. So I think we'll probably be switching somewhere between October and January. That's what I'm thinking.
What did you say the cost was?
It's an additional $45,000, but the total licensing will go to $125,000. Microsoft.
Is it going to cause Keaton to have trouble with his computer?
I think he'll be just fine.
Got a really good liaison that's on top of it.
I think we'll be good. So, and it'll be nice that we'll be able to share things with OneDrive, which is kind of nice to be able to have that in the cloud, and Teams is a nice feature. We might be able to get rid of our Zoom license, which is only about $4,300 a year, but we can probably get rid of that after we get that in place.
Any other questions for Tim? Thanks for your time, Tim.
Thanks.
Appreciate all the info, and we'll be in touch as we work through this monster. Clerk Lane's up next.
Good afternoon. Has been a long day. I have this up really high still, I see. Okay, so I have several budgets to go through here. So I'll just go in line of what's on here. So the county clerk budget has increased. I did have the new staff member. I had two who were hired last year but have had their increases. And then I had several increases where a person in payroll had moved up a few steps. And then when we moved the commission secretary also to the office manager role, that had gone up a little. So you will see that increase in payroll. I didn't change anything else or request any other changes in the clerk's office. I did ask to increase office supplies to 7,000 from 6,500 due to the cost of everything going up. And we have a lot of the labels that go on all of the land records and things like that have gone up in cost. And we've not had any slowing down this year of vehicle and land purchases. So we are going through them. I just had to purchase more. So that's on there. And the other thing would be, which we need to talk about which budget to go in, but Granicus. So Granicus's yearly fee is $23,527.93. So I did that. I did add that into my budget, but I know there was discussion on, does it go in the clerks or the commissioners? It's kind of something you guys can discuss later, but I did put it in mine for now, the clerk's budget. So that it had somewhere to go and be accounted for.
That under your operating then?
Yes.
We like
Or-
it in your budget. It looks good. there.
Yeah. And so that, or actually, did I put it in the operating Bonnie or did I put it in dues and subscriptions? Oh, increase. Okay. I'm guessing it's an annual maintenance. It's an annual maintenance fee, so it's in repairs and maintenance. So I did not have anything in there. My revenue, there's just a few of our offices that bring in like a revenue that we turn in. So that's at the top of mine. It always throws me off when I'm trying to look at this. So I didn't request any increases in the clerk's budget, except for those, of course, my payroll and stuff went up due to the increase in COLA last year, and then those things that I mentioned. Any questions on?
Mr. Chairman, maybe I fell asleep, but I'm sorry, looking at your repairs and maintenance,
Mhm.
it's up 228%. Did I miss that?
That's great.
Yeah, that's Granicus.
For a second there.
Granicus.
That's the
That was in
Granicus.
there. Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I
Thank
couldn't
you.
remember where I put it. It seems like so long ago.
I thought I heard Bonnie say, my hearing's not that great. I
Yeah,
thought I
no,
heard
it's
her
fine.
say it was in maintenance, but I wasn't sure what it was that was in maintenance.
Yes, that's Granicus.
Thank you.
So that is our new program. Like I said, I wasn't sure where to put it, so I just took it in my maintenance budget. So like I said, it was accounted for, and if you wanted to move it later, we can do that, but I didn't want it to not be in the budget.
Any more questions on the clerk budget? Looks like we're on to financial management.
Okay, so financial management is our accounting manager, and in that is the salary with any step increases and of course insurance costs. We didn't put anything different. Everything else stayed the same with that. There was no increases. So the main increase on that is the COLA that and insurance.
questions, commissioners?
Insurance.
Straightforward there. This one's very important, commissioner support.
Okay, so then the next one is our commissioner support, and that one is our position that Sally fills. So with that one is the no, I can't read it on my glasses. We didn't increase anything in that except for the insurance benefits and any step increases that would have happened. So all of that is, yeah, all of that is just salary and payroll.
Straightforward there. Any questions?
No, I noticed that from our budget in the past, everything was listed under the clerk and now you've isolated those out to shift some of the burden to us. I think you're smart.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Well, actually, I believe it's still under the clerk. This is how it was when I got here. So I think it's just to show, I think the elections is pulled out because that fluctuates so greatly that it would look like, why does she want this much next? Well, that was a large increase just to show it's an off election year. So when we get to that one, which is next. Okay, so on elections, the only thing on elections, I did flip a couple of the numbers for advertising because we have more due to elections, even on off years, we have a lot of advertising for elections, putting out the new laws and giving people their information on where their precincts and stuff are. But I had more in the legal than I did in the advertising, and our legal advertising, it's actually flipped. So I moved the amounts around. And I lowered it a little. I didn't need that much, but I lowered it, but I just wanted them in the correct line item so that when I have my legal ads, it's showing in the legal budget and I'm not taking it out of the other one to make up for enough of that. And then in the only other thing that I will need is a printer in elections. That printer, I don't know how long it's been here before me. It jams, it doesn't work correctly. It's been repaired by IT. They try to eke it out and fix it. I don't need as fancy a one that's in there right now. But the cost of printers just keeps increasing. And for us to have the one that works with WyoReg, it has to have which is our state system for elections. It has to have different types of, I don't know the words for it, but like codes and things in it that can be supported for WyoReg. The thing with that is right now, whenever I have to send postcards out, the cost is around $8,000, $5,000 of which is somewhere for the postcards. And the machine that I'm looking for actually prints the postcards. We'd like to be able to print our own and only then pay for the postage on that. So yes, my ink would go up. When we looked at it, it could cut that cost in half. So I would like to be able to do that, but right now it doesn't support the cardstock, and it only will print labels that are really expensive. It doesn't print the ones I can get at our warehouse. I have to buy Avery labels or it will gum up the machine and stops from that. And during election time, which will start again in January, so half of this year, will starting the label process. Oh, and on the clerk one I didn't mention is that it was time for a printer in the other little area, but the printing company said I need to be replaced, but I don't need that replaced. I already have the two in the back and we can walk back there. So we'll not be asking for that. Any questions on elections? It does go down a lot, like I said, because a lot of it is of course, the cost of running an election. I have to start buying things though in like now. So we didn't lower anything for that because in 2020, we bought a lot of supplies to get us through there. And then we had to use them for the 2021 special election. And then we got through this one, but now I'm depleted of all the supplies that we had. So I'm going to have to replace them all start getting those things in for next year's election. So start buying all that now.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tillman?
I have a question. Like special districts, when they have an election, they said they got billed this year and they never had in the past. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So when I took office, there wasn't a formula or anything in place that we calculated for election cost. Some special districts were charged, others weren't charged. I did ask the former clerk, like, is there a, there are reasons why behind that? What is the formula? There was just kind of really how it was done. So I contacted the other 22 clerks and they all have a formula they use because the statute says you take this amount and do these different things with it. So that's what we did. And it's only their amount. So if how many ballots they're on versus how many somebody else is on, some are on all ballots. So the college pays a lot of money because they're on every ballot in the county. So we do take that into consideration. So they were, everybody was charged equally with that formula so that I could, if they called, I could explain it. And then we did have a few ask, and the only recourse for that is to come and talk to the commissioners. They're the only ones who can waive that expense. But so far, I've just had a few left that, and one was just a change in guard of their board, and so the wrong person got it. So we had to remail it out. So that was why that happened. It was just fair and across the board because I had no explanation and no agreements with anyone that I could find that said they didn't have to pay.
It just caught some of them off guard because they had never been billed before.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Cindy, you don't have to run the elections for every one of those districts, do you?
No.
No.
They can run their own, or they can choose to. We have a couple smaller little towns that run their own mayor and city council races. We provide them with some envelopes. I mean, that was just a big debate across the clerks. Who provides envelopes? And I'm like, I don't know. I give them envelopes if they ask for them. And then we provide their poll book because we have access to the voters' information. So we put together a poll book for them.
And just for a point of information, going back a couple of clerks, we've had clerks in the past that refused to do that for a lot of special districts. And then I believe our previous clerk started doing it more and more once he was asked to do it. So.
And if they do and I did call all the special districts last year because there was, with the redistricting, there was a few of them that were split in so many different ways. It created 5 or more ballot styles, which means I could have 20 different ballots at one location, which can cause a lot of issues for people handing out the correct ballot and making sure. So we were going to try to do maybe a mail-in ballot. And so I did talk to them all about the differences, but it ended up being just easier to just run it on the regular ballot and
So
seemed to
the
come out
cities,
okay.
they had to help pay too then for the mayor elections and city council and all that? Okay.
Yes, everyone was billed, school district,
Oh,
college,
okay.
hospital districts.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions on elections budget?
I don't want you to get ahead of yourself too far.
Yeah, see how you are? Give her the microphone,
All right.
watch out.
I know. Okay, so the last one that I inputted the commissioners to, but you guys could talk about that one. The last one that I have is the general county admin. General county admin is for those services that do not belong to a particular elected official's office or department head. So, for example, general county admin professional services is anytime the county needs to hire outside counsel. It's on behalf of the county, not necessarily on behalf of one particular person. So that comes out of this fund here. So if our council has to fly somewhere on behalf of the county to testify or anything like that, comes out of that account. Also, the one that is increasing is the utility services. That contract is going up a little. That is for our shredding. So the buildings all have shredding that's locked and it's confidential, and they come once a week to empty those shredding bins. During the election, after the election, when I have to shred the 2 years prior, I have them come over. They shred them. We watch it being shredded since it's confidential, and they don't leave till it's all done and we've verified that it's all shredded. So that's for our shredding. It goes for the whole county. All county people put their stuff in there. So that is what that's for, but it's going up a little bit in cost for that.
but everything else stayed the same. I do that one with Marty. Some of them are like our, the postage machines. So we have a postage machine downstairs, all departments use it, all elected officials use it. That lease for that machine is paid for by the county.
Did not know of this until I was studying. Like, it makes sense. Where does that stuff end up? But it's interesting.
Mhm.
Questions on general county administration, commissioners? Thanks, Cindy. Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Cowan, you are up next, sir.
I think we're all ready for some jumping jacks. Everybody up? Maybe you don't want to be awake for this. I don't know. We didn't do much other than obviously payroll is pretty stagnant. We had our highest paid our highest paid worker will be leaving in June. So that's going to affect our budget, drop us a little bit, which is why you don't see the increase like you saw in the other departments. We did ask for capital because the desk in the treasurer's office was just plumb worn out by the previous treasurer, working on it for 40 plus, I don't know how many years.
Good year.
So we will be looking for some office furniture for the treasurer's office. Other than that, I don't think there's any mysteries here.
Mark, just a quick question on the telephone. That was one that I always had an issue with, and the last several years, it has been in that $600 range. You've raised it to $1,060. I realized, no, I'm talking $300 or $400. But in talking with Tim back in the day, he was able to give me that number, and it was always less. Is there a reason that one's raising?
I'm actually carrying a county cell phone now.
I
So
got
there
you.
you go.
All right,
Yeah,
that makes a difference.
but I would
Okay.
prefer to do it that way. So that's where that telephone number comes from.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Then you won't need that new desk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with that too. It's got good history.
Hello there. You're good. You know, when someone walks through with something in their hand, you know, I kind of get a little nervous. So.
He's getting cool pictures. I gotta leave.
A little worried when I saw black plastic sticking in
No.
there.
Any questions for the treasurer's budget?
All right, thank you.
Is the training come under operating? Training, do you have trainings?
We don't. I've got some stuff that I've put in there for myself for like the Treasurers Association, and that is into the operating, you know, we're part of the association and we do go to their annual things, and we go to Wacko or Waco, depending on who you ask. So we do attend that. Yeah, and I will be working on the investment policy. I have asked the other treasurers for their investment policies. Most of them haven't updated theirs since 2011. The ones I've received are all the exact same one that's been submitted for forever. So I'll work with Commissioner Slaughter and try and develop one that actually works for our county. So.
Did you ever get that handbook for new treasurers from Sublette County? Did they ever get it too?
No, they're still working on it. So, yep, we're actually going to be in Pinedale next week, and they're going to go through that manual and see if we can get something finalized, because we're still working off one from, I think, 1978, I think. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
They've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah.
be fresh in your mind what you really need to know.
For sure. If I can remember it, that'll be good. All right, we good?
Any other questions?
you.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate your time. Mr. Davis. Anyone need a break? Keep pushing. Keep pushing. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. I don't really have much difference. I mean, the salary stuff is mostly my salary that changed with the changes from the previous commission. And then I do have the 3 people we talked about this morning who are going to go from temporarily certified to permanently certified. Those are the changes in the payroll. I did have my TY Pickett contract, and they are the ones that value all of our industrial properties. They have been, that contract was stuck from 2016 to 2021. It never changed. They upped it $2,000 a year ago and then $5,000 this past year, and it's all very much reasonable. I had to up my postage just a little, and I think my Pickett posted, yeah, that was it. So I think we're pretty good. Nothing crazy. We don't have any new major purchases. We're just kind of plugging along.
What was the service you were referring to?
TY Pickett is our industrial appraisal firm, and they actually value the Toronto mines, the coal mines, all the oil and gas processing facilities. This always amazes me. I look up every year how much value they actually value in the county, and it's $3.6 billion of market value of property in the county. And not only do they value that property, they also process any pollution, fire, or underground mining exemptions. And when you take that value of those accounts and multiply it by the 12 mil, the values that they generate actually come to $3.8 million in the 12 mil. So that's a very, very valuable service for us. And we just don't have the expertise to either value or defend those appraisals. So, and they've been doing it across the state for decades. So very, very good people.
Did this payroll include the additional person that you wanted or not?
No, it does not. No, it does not.
Anita did send something over.
Yeah, I was going to address that, but you beat me to it.
Oh.
So, Mr. Chairman, we at questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dave, with respect to my questions earlier on your budget, what I would like to see, and I don't know that the rest of the board will agree with me on this, but I would actually like to see the position you requested in your budget for this year.
Okay.
Because I think as part of our budget process, we can then look at that and determine whether it's appropriate or not. But I think it should be in there so we can have that dialogue and that discussion. Because once again, I do believe it's warranted. I just didn't like the timing of where it was. So I don't, as I say, I can't speak for the other commissioners, but if they would agree, I would ask you to work with Bonnie, put that position in. And as we work through the entire budget, that way we can address that within that portion of the budget. So
I will do that.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know what you think of that, but
No, I mean, I think it was what you had the number, $76,000 increase or
Yeah.
something like
ballpark.
that. So
Absolutely. I think that was reasonable. I think Brenda probably, I'll reach out to HR with Brenda and have her put that position in, knowing it's tentative. And then as the budget process goes forward, we'll evaluate as we go.
any other questions for Mr. Davis? Doesn't look like it. Dave, we appreciate your time and
All right.
we'll continue to sort through this as we move through it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
We're just about 40 minutes ahead. Commissioners, doesn't look like. No idea what Mary's doing. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute
whatever
break.
it was, she's doing it in a hurry.
Yeah, let's take a break. We'll come back at 3:05. Oh, you're right in time.
I just got treatment. It's like we're going downstairs now. Oh, you guys have had a long day.
You never dreamed that we'd be a schedule, did you?
All right, so we are on to the clerk of district court. Let me get caught up here and find the. Good. All right, it's all yours.
Okay, the salaries are just pretty much self-explanatory, I think. It's kind of hard to budget in my office for certain things. Excuse me. The professional services is where the transcripts are paid out of that the court reporters provide. And it's also where my mental health attorneys, appointed attorneys are paid out of. And the transcripts and stuff like that are, depending on how many trials we have, appeals, what have you. If the appellant has a public defender, we have to pay for the transcripts. And in a criminal trial, that's a week long, that gets pretty pricey. And the court reporters, I don't know if it passed or not, but they haven't had a raise in their fee for 20 years, and they're going from $3.25 a page up to $5.36 a page. Yeah, it's a 68% increase. Beginning in July of this year, we are going to have back-to-back jury trials. A lot of times they will cancel a criminal one, but we have 2 civil trials coming up that are going to be 2 weeks long or longer. And so I have to plan for that, and that's where my jury money comes out of. The jury fees and stuff like that comes out of that. The office supplies, we're over budget already. So I went ahead and bumped that up to $10,000. We use these files. They're SMED, it's a heavy duty. Our cases can get this big and have a lot of files per case. Some can be very thin, but they're a better quality made file that we get from Plainsman, and they usually provide for the courts. They've tried cheaper brands, but they don't seem to hold up as well. Postage, as we all know, there's going to be an increase July 1, so I just added $500 onto that. Last year, my travel was up because we had to go for training for our new case management, all of us in the office, and so I had a budgeted $10,000 for that. So I cut that quite a bit. Our equipment and furnishings, 13,000. I budgeted nothing because that was for a copier that we needed. So I think we've done fairly well in our budget. I wanted to, and that's another subject, but you got the information on the court appointed attorneys and GALs. And I wanted to speak to that a little bit for your budget purposes as well. Before I was in office, we were the only county that did not use the state's public defender
This is the
program.
three-year summary from Anita.
I actually, okay, yeah. When I came into office, my budget for the professional services and that was almost $400,000. And in figuring with the figures that we have now and talking with the accounting office, the county is now, it pays about 20% of the GL because the state pays that as well, being part of that program. So I just wanted to let you know, we don't even come close to what the budget was back in 2011 for that, just for kind of an FYI. When we look at the capital, and you're all going to laugh at me, I had $150,000 for Judge Robinson needs a bigger courtroom. It is a circuit court courtroom and it's horrible. You can't have a jury trial in there. You have to have room for the court reporter. You have to have room for the hub if anybody's gonna testify electronically. The attorneys and the one attorney's desk is so close to the jury box, they could see their notes, hear any conversations, and we need to be sure that everybody has a fair trial, including the state, so we've talked about that. I put that in the capital and Gene and I talked, he went up, and we walked around about it and he's saying about 1.5 million is what that would take. And I know Rob, I believe you're on the building committee. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm not good at construction, obviously, and pricing that stuff out. I thought, take out a wall here and whatever, we'd be good.
Oh, no, and then they can have new computers,
Uh,
17 monitors and.
Yeah, so,
Always add a couple of zeros.
Yeah. the courtroom, no. Yeah. I think the statute is that we have to house them,
Wow.
but stand for any questions you might have.
So are you, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
so you're gonna put 1.5 million in the budget to,
I don't foresee that happening this budget session. Robbie, you wanna?
If I remember correctly, and Bonnie, you were there, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it was prioritized at one of the lower levels on that project. So it was something that probably would not be considered for this year.
Correct, yeah.
So I think
And-
even though it was part of the capital request, when we prioritized them, we did them whether they were a number 1, 2, 3, 4 priority. And I think that one actually fell down the list of ways.
Right. And when we were talking with Jean, Judge Robinson said she doesn't want a Band-Aid. Like if there was something that the county had in mind a couple years down the road, why invest all this money to make a big courtroom if something else was going to happen? So she was very considerate about that.
how does she get by in the meantime?
Currently, when there's jury trials, the judges alternate the big courtroom.
Donnelly, there was talk of the third district court being added. Is that,
It has happened and he is housed in Uena County, Judge Castee. Is that how you say it? I'm not sure but it's Castee.
but we won't have to
I think-
put a new courtroom in for him.
We have room where we want to make a place for him to have an office and for his staff, and we're thinking we can use the room where the treatment court person used to have by the sheriff's office. It's in a secured area. And then across that was where the guardian ad litem, not guardian ad litem, MDT coordinator used to sit. So we have 2 offices that would work. We just need to put new carpet and, that kind of stuff in. So that shouldn't cost too much at all.
Yeah.
Certainly, yeah.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if we take the 150,000 out, the request is actually less than what the request was last year. So
Mhm.
I commend you on that.
Oh, thank you.
You're our first person who's actually less, than asking for less money.
Well, I try to cut my budget every year and sometimes it's not hard or easy, especially when they were thin.
Any other questions, commissioners? That was mine, so. Well, thanks, Donnelly.
Sure.
We're gonna continue to sort through. You weren't here earlier, so we were just kind of explaining to everyone that it's a little bit of a new experience for the newbies up here, but
Mm.
we'll treat today as kind of an informative process to get up to speed as far as what
Yeah.
everyone's needs are. And then obviously we've got some tough decisions to make on
Certainly,
where we're gonna end up and, if we're gonna consider any COLAs and things of that nature. So
Right.
we'll try and be open and transparent as we can with that, but a lot of today is just figuring out where everyone's at and how we can kind of
Yeah.
sort through the
and I
process.
apologize for going off subject a little bit, but I wanted to give you some of that historical
No, we appreciate
information
that.
with those GAL fees and some of those court appointment. So,
No problem.
alrighty.
Thanks very much.
You guys have a great day.
Will we
Do you want me to
clap
send
after?
pizza or something?
Yeah. Mary bought some. It's in the Castle Rock room. If
Yeah.
you're hungry.
Yeah, there's snacks.
I'm like, yes, well,
I figured out my.
What was it?
Yes.
You have land use up next.
I kept looking.
Good afternoon, Eric.
Hey, good morning, afternoon.
That's how was that bumper.
Not sure, it blends all together.
They start to blend together.
Okay. So we'll do land use first. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So,
I was just going for Mary's reaction more than anything. Go ahead. Hang on, Eric, a second.
no problem.
Trying to- I told you I was going to.
That other hand, well, the battle of the, I can't find it on the end drive. That's okay. Go ahead. I'll catch up. I had it earlier, but now I can't find it.
Mine came as just under the budget request.
I had it. Oh, here it is. Let me try that. It says no items in there, so I don't know if I accidentally deleted it or something.
It's in there. I just opened it.
Well, it says it's not in here. I'll figure it out there. I know I saw it in there. Yeah,
It's up here.
Just remember.
sorry, I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
no problem.
Which one's been updated?
Eventually we'll get to you. I'm gonna gavel out pretty hard here in a minute.
Again?
Here we go. Come on. Floor is yours, Eric.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So land use houses code enforcement, planning and zoning, subdivision, fire, public lands, all of the above. And so we'll go over the land use budget first. So the increase in payroll is the position that is including the position that you approved at the last commissioner meeting. So for the entry level planner position is included in there. There, pretty much I was able to lower the operating budget by a couple of $1,000. And the big ticket items on my budget is the capital. So it's $30,000. So it's I house the copier and the large format printer. Oh, thank you, Bonnie. For IT, HR, land use, engineering. So that when they print, it goes to that copier. And then the same thing with the large format printer. That's where we scan all the plats from the clerk's office, then they go digitized. And then also for printing off engineered drawings. So we purchased those two things in 2016. Typically about 5 years is the life of them. It's been 7 years. So we've actually put in for it last year, but they bumped it to this year. When you spend 2 to 3 hours on jamming the system, it's not a good, it's not a good way for staff time to be utilized. So for the large format printers. So that's the big budget items that I have in there, Mr. Chairman. That's all that I have, and stand for any questions.
So those are direct purchase, not on a lease or anything like that?
Direct purchase.
Okay.
And then I should include too, that we do maintenance contracts on both of those. And so we'll have to bid these obviously, right? If these get approved on the budget. And then the repairs and maintenance, why that's so high is we do maintenance contracts on there. So instead of in those maintenance contracts, you can include a toner, which toner is very expensive. Things like that. And then the regular maintenance of those copiers.
So wouldn't it be better just to lease them and not change them out sooner?
Never looked at that option, Marty. Have we looked at?
Some time ago, we looked at leasing them, and we found that it was cost effective to lease, but the lease payments were so expensive.
Okay.
I think they get you either way with those usually.
Yeah. Hey, you bet.
Pretty straightforward here. Any other questions, commissioners? They're pricey.
I'm hoping they come in less, but
Yeah.
well, just, it's an estimate, so. Yep, exactly.
Okay. Well, looks like we're on to economic development.
This is another MOU.
Yep. So yes, and I have the copies of the MOU here. So just so everyone understands, the county pays $70,000. So that even though the budget's around is $210,000, 140,000 of that is paid by both cities. So 70,000 from the city of Rock Springs, 70,000 from Green River, and then 70,000 plus from the county. So even though the number says that, it comes in as a reimbursement. As you were on city council, Mr. Chairman, as you know, those come in. I think it's a one-time payment now is what we're doing to make life easier. So we kept the budget the same as we did last year, no changes in it. And the biggest thing in there is, if you're wondering what the 70,000 is, marketing, and marketing is not cheap. So that's what I'll say to that.
Commissioner Shanefield.
This question I think is for Bonnie. Bonnie, do you
Yeah.
have that built into grant revenues or do you just have it into regular revenues?
It just goes into the general fund revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay.
As far as the city's contribution, is that what you mean? Okay.
And that MOU does go through 2024 that we have. So this will go through next year till June 30th.
3-year?
It was a 2-year we did, yeah. When we signed it last year, yeah. So we're tied to those amounts on that one, so. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for economic development or Eric in general?
Yes.
Commissioner Tillman?
Did you build anything into there to attract industries, or are you gonna leave that up to the Economic Development Commission, or any kind of funding to attract industry?
Yes, that's what the professional services is for. So right now we're working actually on a marketing campaign, which includes brochures, redesign of the website, all marketing materials, programmatic marketing online. So that's all built into that $70,000.
I think that includes media buys and everything.
Yes, yes, it does.
It's all of
It's all of it, yes. And then the travel that's in there too. One thing that we were looking at this next year is bringing site selectors here, which costs about $15,000, but that's also included into the budget when we budgeted. So we're hoping to do that this year. Didn't get a chance this last year. Great question.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thanks, Eric. Looks
You
like
bet.
that's it for today. I'm sure
thank
we'll
you.
have more as we sort through it all.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next up, we got Gary and HR. Good afternoon, Gary.
Good afternoon. You guys lost a little of your starch in the.
Yeah, a little bit.
afternoon, yeah.
Thanks for noticing.
Don't
Well,
bet-
somebody had to state the obvious.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
don't bet on it, is all I can tell you.
So a couple things, you probably noticed there's some small increases in the budget. You probably talked a little bit that, this is a leap year, so there'll be 2 extra days this year. So you'll see a little bit of that in the budgets.
Never
Uh,
even thought of that.
Yeah, so you'll see like 0.77 or so. So you'll see a little bit of that. We probably talked some about that. And then just broadly, and we'll cover this again in the in the 510 or the health insurance budget, but the medical cost of inflation, we put in the budget's preliminary at 8%. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. I don't think we're going to need that much. The plans run great. We got a data review on claims data tomorrow. So I think we'll be able to do less than that. HR one first?
Yeah.
So nothing really too significant there. Almost the whole budget's in salaries. We have a couple changes, obviously the premium increase in health insurance, the spousal HRA change, and then the 2 additional days for the leap year. And that's all that's in there. The change is very small. Any particular questions on that side? You're doing risk management.
Yep.
Okay.
No questions on HR? Pretty straightforward.
So the risk management budget includes primarily our property insurance and liability insurance. For everybody edification, the property insurance is through the Wyoming Association of Risk Management. I'm on the board of WARM. Our liability insurance is with the local government liability pool. Both of those are state risk pools. There's been really no change in the liability side, but there have been some fairly significant changes. We met last Thursday to go over premiums from the property insurance side. And obviously the pool is insured by national carriers. So when we have high losses and wildfires, floods in the east, tornadoes, things that drives up the cost. Probably one of the biggest elements right now is our plan is a replacement cost. So if this building were to burn down, it's a replacement value. It's not an insured value. Same with vehicles that are less than 10 years old. So the sheriff's car is wrecked. It's a replacement cost of that car, not the insured value of the car, like your private insurance. They're over 10 years and we get half. The reason I bring that up is because for buildings like this at today's dollars, for the increased cost of building materials, HVAC, plumbing, so on and so forth, those are pushing a lot of upward pressure on the property insurance for replacement costs. On top of which we have in here reflected the new building. What I've done, the bottom line budget is not much of a change. Mostly because, so let me back up. The increased cost to the property side will be over $100,000 a year. We had previously budgeted in the risk management side for equipment and furnishings like 200,000. We pay most of the claims and get reimbursed, meaning people hit us, people damage guardrails, things like that. We eventually get some reimbursement. So I lowered the equipment and furnishings. We had like 203,000 in there. I lowered that down to 30,000. And we have increases obviously in the WARM premium. The coverage for the property insurance will be bound sometime in the next 2 weeks. I expect it to be just a touch lower yet. Based on our meeting on Thursday, I lowered my amount at $20,000 to 613,500, where you see the total 633,500. I lowered that to 613,500. And I think by next week, we should be able to lower that just a little bit more. But for budget planning, it's hard to go the other way. So in terms of the initial numbers, we used a little bit higher number, but we think we can get just a little bit better on that. Now that also includes crime coverage. So if we have theft of county resources or embezzlement, it also includes cyber coverage. That's something that been working extensively with Tim on in the event that we have a hacking situation or a breach of some kind. We have insurance program, number one, to help in with the financial costs, but also to help in identifying the breach, the solutions, getting back up and running. And so that's part of that policy also, which is a relatively new form of coverage. The net on that will actually be a decrease, even though we've had an increase over on the WARM property insurance. Any questions on the risk management side? One thing I would say overall that's interesting on that side, this winter with all of the snow and the terrible roads, we did not have a lot of like interstate type collisions. We've had more small accidents sliding into guardrails and backing type small accidents. So we've done actually okay for as bad a winter as it was this year. Any questions on the risk management side? So just so that everybody knows, we haven't talked about this a lot, but when we have a claim, if a tree falls on a county building, we'll submit a claim to the Warren Property Insurance. We pay a $5,000 deductible out of this account. They'll pay the remainder of the costs. If a vehicle is damaged by a third party, we handle the claim with that third party insurance. We'll pay the claim to either get the vehicle replaced or repaired. Then we receive reimbursement back for the from those claims. We've had a number of vandalism to the parks, as Gene's probably mentioned. We have some folks paying like literally $15 a month for the last 5 years pursuant to court ordered restitution. That comes back from there. So all those claims are handled that way. Liability claims are similarly handled from this fund. Any questions?
Questions, commissioners? Doesn't look like it. Appreciate the detail, though. I didn't know a lot of that, so.
2420, okay.
Like we're on to employee benefits.
Yeah. So this is an area that's primarily for the costs associated with pre-employment physicals, drug testing, and any psychiatric or medical care that may be needed for employees over the course of the year. Probably predominantly is pre-employment physicals and drug testing, and then mostly in the law enforcement area when we have critical incidents and we do critical incident debriefing or post-traumatic stress debriefing or treatment, that's paid here also. And set over here just a little bit. The main increase in here, I think, really is in the professional services. Medical is we have more turnover, more employment tests, more drug tests. When we've had a continued use for mental health evaluation and treatment. So we bumped that up just a little bit in that area. Now, questions on employee benefits 2420?
Did you say this is where like pre-employment physicals and things of that nature?
That's
is
right, yeah.
categorized?
That's right.
Just caught my eye because we had one come through, what, a week or two ago. And it was for Southwest Counseling, and I'm thinking, why are we turning around and, paying a component unit?
Yeah,
to do the service for us,
Yeah. So, as you know, Southwest Counseling has a PA, and there probably have been times when we've used them for that purpose. We don't normally use PA. We normally use somebody who does occupational medicine that's set up and has the forms for that. But there are some occasions where that occurs, and normally they just build the cost for that. But yeah, that does happen periodically. But primarily we use a place that's set up for occupational medicine so that they have, for example, the CDL forms or the physical forms that we use for law enforcement. So they're assessing the right thing. So normally we wouldn't be using them, but there are times.
Any other questions, commissioners? Yes, we will move on
Buddy, I'm
to
gonna-
veteran services.
The insurance fund real quick. That wasn't on there, but
Yeah, we were gonna do that too. We're just doing department.
Okay. okay. I'll just address it and then with the health insurance, just so you know, as I said earlier, in the departmental budgets, we put in when we did those an 8% increase. Right now, we've run about as well as we have in quite some time. So obviously through the COVID period and then after that, there were some real anomalies. So in here, we budgeted an 8% increase. We had budgeted probably, I think, around 10.2. We're probably going to be 10.2, meaning 10.2 million. We're probably going to be closer to 8.8 in that fund, and that's the 510 fund. The bigger issue, which I hopefully will be able to send you an answer this week, is that we only have about 6 weeks of claims. So May and probably the first 2 weeks in June that will pay out of this claims year. So I don't see us having a significant surplus in the insurance fund this year. And because of that, I would never recommend a zero increase ever again. That's never panned out well because you have up years and down years. But I do think we're going to be able to decrease the increase. So by that, I'm saying maybe 5 or 6 as opposed to 8%. So that would be maybe a savings of $120,000 to $150,000. And I'll try to come back with that. But right now I left the 8%. It's easier to reduce than to add, but we should be able to reduce that amount. I'm pretty confident that the question is just how much. And ultimately that'll be your decision, but I'll have some recommendations after we have the data tomorrow.
We like cuts. That's good. Savings are always good.
Yeah, just for those of you that are new, the health insurance fund is in a separate fund. It's not in the 001 fund. It's in a 510 fund. And so all of the expenses for that health insurance, whether they're at any of the component units or ours, all the expenses are paid out of that fund, and all the revenues, meaning all the premium payments from all the entities, including the county, are paid into that fund. So the finances that are completely separate. For those of you that aren't familiar, most other states, when you have this type of arrangement with separate legal entities, you'd have what's called a multi-employer welfare arrangement, which is like a trust. Wyoming doesn't regulate those. So the best we could do is set it up in a separate fund so that they're separate from the 001 account. So you can run all separate analysis on there. So all for everybody, all the health insurance expenses for the county and all of the other entities are paid out of that fund, and all the revenues are paid in. So it's a standalone fund.
I did not know that.
Okay.
Will it have a standalone budget item? Will it come up in the budget somewhere?
Yeah, it's in the budget, but that's why it's in a separate fund.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know how many funds do we have now? I don't know. 3, 4, or whatever. I don't know. But okay, so anyway, just for now, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to address those. VSO.
Yeah.
So a couple important issues with the VSOs, really not a huge number of significant changes. One is I'll have a retirement in December in the Rock Springs office and the Green River office. And so the significance of that for me is that this is a very hard position to fill. Typically the training is a couple years. We have some procedures and we have folks to help train now. But in those 2 offices right now, just to give you some ideas, we have about 1,100 active claims. So part of the increase that's in this request is to try to get the position replaced and started earlier while we can transition the existing claims to the new person. It's very difficult where folks have claims that are started and then somebody leaves and you're starting with no. So we use a case management system called Vetrospect. So all the claims data are in there, all the documents, and we file claims directly with the VA or a service organization through that. But knowing where the claims are in terms of the process would be very difficult. So part of what I'm requesting here is the replacement position, if the board were to approve it in December, would be significantly lower in cost. Sam's quite a ways along, higher steps. This position would come in at the bottom of that. But I would like about 3 months, like September, October, November of overlap. And then as she transitioned out, then it would just be that one person. So I've requested 3 additional months of meaning to have the new person on and the existing person. If the board chooses not to do that, I'll do the best I can with it, but prudent, I think, to try to make that transition as seamless as possible. If we can do it, if we can't, we'll do the best we can using the existing staff. For those of you that are new, we provide services in from Wamsutter to Evanston, all the way to Jackson. So that's Lincoln County, Sublette County, Sweetwater County, and Uena County. Uena County is under contract with the state, so we're reimbursed dollar for dollar when we provide services there. That includes mileage and salary and benefits. We get about $24,000 or so, $25,000 from that. Lincoln County and Sublette County each pay their respective costs back to us. Okay, so just to give you some ideas of numbers. Just bear with me. So if the board were to consider the 3 months overlap, Sweetwater County would pay about $147,000 this year, be the cost of the Veteran Services Program. Sublette County would be roughly 80 and Lincoln would be about 99. Okay, so the total budget is 326,480. But we should receive dollar for dollar reimbursement. We bill quarterly to Sublette and Lincoln County for their actual costs, meaning their actual employment costs and the actual costs to run their offices, and then receive reimbursement for that. So Sweetwater County's cost for this program will be roughly $147,000 to $150,000. Now, one of the things that I think is worth mentioning, I just received this actually today. So we received from the VA a distribution report, meaning when they pay out claims, they break it down by state and by county. And so I just wanted to give you a couple numbers because I think people are always shocked and wonder about the value of these programs. The service for the veterans stands on its own, but the financial benefit to the communities and to the veterans shouldn't be understated either. So Sweetwater County, there's service provided to almost 3,000 veterans. The total benefits that come back are roughly 30,449,000. 15 million in compensation and pension, 728,000 in education, voc rehab, 117,000 insurance and indemnities, medical care, 14 million. By comparison, Lincoln County, for example, has about half the veteran population. They receive about 12 million in total expenditures. 6 million, almost 7 million in compensation and pension, 267,000. So in education, 39,000 insurance indemnities, 5 million in medical care. So most of those dollars are dollars that come back to the veteran. That are expended in the community in form of groceries and housing and those things. So it's a super program. Probably the only heartache that we've had is, as you know, the state of Wyoming provides veteran services to almost every other county in the state. They pay for service people to go out and kind of a traveling roadshow. That never worked. That's kind of how we started this program. And so it seems like for those counties that have created a program that's strong, they choose not to provide any funding, and they fund to some extent programs in every other county in the state. I've continued to work with them. They have assisted with training, and they are going to pay for our veteran spec subscription if we can bring those together. But it's an area that legislatively, the model that we have, in my opinion, is better than their model. I challenge anybody to prove otherwise. For the dollars we spend versus the dollar we return, the ROI is unmatched. Positively impacted a lot of veterans in the communities and outside. But I think the state needs to provide some contribution, and I think it's good that the counties have ownership, but the state needs to be part of that ownership also. And I think that's something that through the association, County Commissioners Association, and other things that need to continue some discussions about. But they could not provide services in Uena County. He asked me, could we do it once a week? Lincoln County had a surplus of capacity, and so they pay for her to go there. So it makes no sense. Why would they not contribute something for for Sweetwater and Sublette County. Makes zero sense, but they're super happy with that arrangement. We sign a contract here in a month or so.
Was that 30 million? Is that what you said?
Yes, and I have a
Total for all the counties that are involved, or is that just Sweetwater? That's incredible.
This is just off the national report.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
just
look,
Sweetwater. I just think that's a remarkable program. And obviously, as you alluded to, the return on the investment for, what, we're paying roughly $150,000 and it's brought back 30 million just to Sweetwater. I mean,
Well, and some other really cool things that aren't captured in this. We worked with the state to get a transportation grant. So as you might imagine, in the western counties, getting to Sheridan, getting to Cheyenne, or getting to Salt Lake, or even getting to basic healthcare is a huge challenge. So we have a $50,000 if a sheriff's department employee or a transportation company is willing to take a veteran down there, we have a place to reimburse them. So we've been utilizing that in some of the rural areas to get them to places they need to be. The other part that people don't realize when we try to work with the sheriff's department, the county attorney's office, and we've had some success, is Sheridan provides very good mental health treatment for veterans. And so when we encounter veterans that are having problems, mental health problems in the jail or at the hospital, the service officers work with them to try to get those services delivered, because number one, they have full-time psychiatrists, they have inpatient facilities, they have clinical facilities, and they also have the home in Buffalo. So they're willing to help transport and to help facilitate treatment. We've done it online just recently in Evanston. We did one in Lincoln County. And so that's an area where when we're paying for Title 25, if it involves a veteran, there's access to resources to get those folks. And what I would say is a very high level of care. Sheridan, I'm going to try to get them to come down and do a presentation for us so that all the law enforcement and courts, judicial system, hospital personnel, we've done it once before, but as you know, the hands change and people forget. You just have to continually renew, but it's a great resource. And I don't think we use it as much as we should.
any other questions on the veteran services, commissioners? And just for quick clarification, Gary, was that one position that's retiring, or did you say two, or is it shared between the two?
No, it's just so as one position, and she's in Green River every Wednesday.
Oh.
And so she's covers Sweetwater County. She'll do outreach to Farson occasionally. She'll do Wamsutter occasionally. And then we have a full-time position in Pinedale that does outreach to Marbleton, occasionally to Bondurant and LaBarge. And then we have a full-time position in Kemmer that does outreach to Star Valley and to Evanston. And so this program right now is covering the western third of Wyoming. So we don't make any distinctions. So we have a fair number of veterans from Manila, even some neighboring areas. We get a number of folks at Snowbird into Star Valley. If they come in for services, they provide them. So.
Appreciate the background on all
Okay.
that. Any other questions? All right, Gary, appreciate your time.
All right, and if you have any questions, holler. Also, just so you know, I'll be emailing everybody the updated cost of living information. We have the fourth quarter. That should be all the data we're going to get relative to that issue. So I have those packets ready. I'll email those today or tomorrow to the board members. Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Okay, looks like next up, we do have purchasing. We've got Marty here. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Sounds like
I'll
you're
tell you,
trying for us.
mine's not gonna be near as impressive as the
as the VSO's budget.
We were way ahead of schedule. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
So, commissioners, my budget didn't change hardly at all. It, increased 1.32%. That deals with the benefits and salary. I decreased the capital. I always put a little bit of money in capital. As you know, in the warehouse, there's hand carts that break, wheels and things of that nature. So that's what the $1,500 capital is for tools and things like that, that when we're putting furniture together, stuff like that. Everything else I left the same, so my budget's pretty straightforward. It's pretty much salaries and minimal operating, so.
Thanks, Marty. Just a question, maybe it's putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but assuming facilities moves to Night Oil, that's gonna allow more, space for you all. Is there any additional costs that would come with that you?
You know,
think of? I know that's
right out
down
at
the
the
road,
start,
but-
when we looked at that, and we talked a little bit with Gene, because again, we're not sure what the board's
Right.
intent is with that area. Believe me, we'll take it. No, we're talking if we do get used to that, Gene and them are still going to need one bay for in the wintertime for snow removal equipment. And so, and we would take one of those bays and make it a surplus. Right now, we have no place to store surplus equipment. And we get it on occasion, and then we have people call, well, we have to eliminate that pretty quick right now. So we either determine, yeah, it can go to another department within the county, or if it's a chair that might have had tears in it or something, then we determine whether to haul it to the landfill, recycle it, that sort of thing. So I know like the treasure mark is asking for a new desk. We have a few others that we have stuffed in corners and that sort of thing. So in order to bring in surplus and have it in a section where people can come and go, oh, hey, can we use that? And then hold a surplus cell, we kind of need an area to have that kind of stuff in. We used to have it down here at the old Road and Bridge shop in Green River. That got turned into museum storage, which makes sense. So we got kicked out of there. Then we were using the Rock Springs office building. And of course, we're trying to eliminate some of those buildings. So then we cleaned all that out.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you
we
can
just keep kind of
Yeah.
bouncing it around. So
I
it
know it's
would be,
early, but I was just
yeah.
trying to think ahead. as
And
far as-
so, and then the other areas, we have a lot of stuff that comes in on pallets that we could just use that area to stock pallets of equipment and materials as opposed to pallet shelves and things of that nature. So we don't foresee, to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, I don't foresee any major costs at all.
Just thinking out loud, thought I'd bring it up. Any other questions, commissioners? Pretty straightforward, Marty. Sorry to make you sit there all afternoon, but
That's all right.
we wanted to share the pain. So
Okay, thanks.
Marty,
Yes.
I haven't seen you, so I have a pin for you.
thanks for your time, Marty.
Yeah.
All right, we're plugging along here. Looks like we've got the county coroner up next, Mr. Mahanovich.
How's everybody today?
Good, how are you doing?
Well, it's dry.
It's been a long day, but we're surviving.
Mine's similar to Marty's, pretty cut and dry. Everything's basically the same as it was last year, with the exception, of course, salaries. Any questions? Pretty cut and dry.
I don't have any questions. It's
Everybody's happy with their new salary?
Oh, yes, appreciate it. Thank you.
The sign company guy grabbed me one day and said, "You have to be in the corner."
all right. Well,
it.
that's pretty easy.
Easy, thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Dale, I got a pin for you too. Dale.
Aren't you glad you came and waited for that, huh?
Dale, I got a pin for you too, because you never come to the courthouse and visit, so.
Thank you.
He tries to stay away from the courthouse. Yes, I know.
Thanks, Dale.
See you, Dale.
Next up, we've got the fire marshal, Mr. Zimmerman. Good afternoon,
Chairman.
fine sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. One thing I want to draw to your attention under the year-to-date actuals. Just want to remind you, we have that 170,000 that we paid for the wildland into the wildland account for fire, the insurance program. Just want to remind you that that sort of skews the year-to-date. And then under the request, I have to add somewhere between 55 and 58,000 for that yearly commitment. Just wanted to mention that. And then overall, the past commissioners, especially the ones that served on the fire committee, this thing, it's going off without a hitch. It's going very well. And of course, yeah, we're getting a good influx of money from the Gateway South and the Exxon Mobil, which helps with our incidents. So it just couldn't be going any smoother. That's why we have a big savings here. So I'm sorry I wasn't the first one with a lower cost, but I might be the biggest. I might be the biggest. So it's going well. If there's any questions, there it is laying in front of you.
Any questions for Jim, commissioners? It's always nice when you see the big parentheses on the side.
Thank you for doing such a good job.
Oh, thank you.
I just have a question. What was the fire yesterday? Did you see anything on it?
What was the pardon?
There was a big fire yesterday. It was not in the county. It was just on the west end of Green River. Did you hear anything? About it?
I just know that it was, it came from a train and spread.
So it did come from the train.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I heard.
It looked like it was spreading to the train, so it was kind of scary.
Well, I think it was the other way around, but we think it was the train. Did you notice the color of smoke?
Oh, yeah, it was black.
Yeah, there.
It looked like it was greasewood and everything that was burning in the bottom down.
Mhm. Yeah,
It was ugly.
I'm hoping that's within the city boundaries. So,
I'm pretty sure it is.
Does the railroad they have fire crew too, though, don't they? Or
yeah, they do, but we respond for sure. So,
Thanks, Jim.
thank you.
Good oversight on that. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
We are on to grants administration. Welcome back, Christina.
See, Jim.
Okay, we're on the home front. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I think I am gonna break tradition of today and ask to increase my budget already. So my budget's pretty simple, salary, wages, and operations. With the support of my liaison and Commissioner Tolman, I am respectfully asking to go to a national conference on grants management. So I've been here 24 years. My anniversary was actually last month, first as a temp and then a permanent employee. I've never been to one and it's been on my mind for a long time. This is a very high level type of grants conference with general sessions, and then they have a lot of cherry picking of specialized topics. So it could target, it's listed as basic or intermediate or advanced. I think there would be great value, not just for me, but many departments I work with. As you know, I work with a lot of the outside agencies as well. You know, it brings back a lot of memories. Bailey was here. We were talking about that grant when I was in France, unfortunately, for a funeral. I mean, so it's a community investment, I think, if I could go. So after talking to Eric and our purchasing manager, Marty, it's in DC. So I think to be safe, I would like to ask to increase travel and meals and education by a total of $4,000, if you think that's reasonable. But if not, I'm not going to quit or anything, so.
she should teach
Wow.
the class instead of
But
going to.
I
Does understand leverage though. So.
So that is my one request by breaking tradition. Otherwise, there's nothing to discuss for me in my budget unless you have questions.
I'm
for
not
that.
sure 4,000 will do it, because when I went for 3 days, it was 3,500 for the airfare, the room, and not very many meals, so you might add another 500 to it.
She was out there buying everyone dinner and, lollygagging around.
Not even going and she's spending more money, so.
Honestly, I emailed Commissioner Shanefield 3,200, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to pinch it. I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna go wild, so. Your call.
I don't think it'll cover it, honestly, for a week.
I would be fine with you putting 5,000 in there and then
Okay.
Yeah.
putting it back.
The carryover. Okay.
When was the last time you spent any money on travel and training?
So
It's been a while.
I actually, if I have to travel, I try to charge it back into grants. So the only thing we stopped doing is collecting indirect costs. The time to do that is just so cumbersome, and being a one-person department, that's kind of sacrifice. So in fact, I was anticipating a hostile environment, and so I was already thinking what grant I could charge. No, I'm just kidding. So remember that
No, I
nice
think
dog
this
this
is a
morning?
strategy. We waited till the very end and we're all just sitting up here rummy to say, hey, give me an extra 5.
Okay,
That's what it
so
was.
I guess my official request is 5,000 to be split between travel, meals, and education training. If you don't have a problem with that. And I'm extremely appreciative of the opportunity.
I don't have a problem with it, Christine. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know if you were watching or not, but kind of the tone today is just figuring out where everyone's budgets are and their requests and their needs. There's obviously a lot of work for us to do to figure out, what we all feel is best moving forward, but
Okay.
what projections are going, what we, feels best for COLAs and cash carryover and yada, yada. So a lot of important conversations to be had, but we just wanted to kind of get up to speed and for the newbies, get their toes in the sand, so to speak, and then we'll start sorting through it, but
So with your permission, I'll update my budget.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, as Commissioner Shanefield had mentioned earlier, there's a lot of interest around ARPA PILT, everything. So originally Bonnie thought you wouldn't have enough time today. I prefer going over it with you when you have a nice cheat sheet to follow. I'll give you a sneak preview that, I'll just summarize, I know. Unless you want me to stop right there, but there is a lot of ARPA money available, as Commissioner Shanefield mentioned. Over $1 million is being carried over into fiscal year 24's budget. The big thing is, I'll be recommending to the commission to approve probably over 4.6 million towards detention payroll. Because there's restrictions on the funding, and that's kind of why I prefer formally giving you a summary so you can understand it is not free money. I just finished all the reporting on that and the consistency fund, or ARPA PILT, last month. It is kind of a strategic plan because yes, there's lots of flexibility in using it, but we have to go through the whole process of audits. We have to be able to pass the audit. It was very enjoyable talking to our auditors last year, hearing about other entities who had to return money. So I want you to clearly understand, one, what are Sweetwater County's needs to help serve the public. How, second, we can offset the county's burden for financial obligations in the road, down the road, like you heard Tim's project, the detention center, that won't happen again for a good 15, 20 years. So we're trying to look at long-term projects. Commissioner Slaughter was with us on the capital committee. I put in my budget also almost $1 million of capital requests that seemed to benefit the community, public safety, road and bridge, and it can easily pass an audit. So as you know, it's a jigsaw puzzle. I know you like to look at bottom numbers, but you should be good at least with the budget going next year. So
That's the quick version.
I
So-
appreciate that. And I think you're right. If we had all the figures in front of us, it might be easier to follow along, but
Mhm.
at least appreciate the background on it as we continue to learn. You have something, Rob?
Yeah, just one quick question, Christina. If I understood you correctly, you said you're planning on putting 4.2 million in against detention center salaries. Where would that put us with respect to that ARPA funding at that point in time with that
Okay.
balance?
Okay, you open the door,
Well,
Commissioner.
I don't want to get too deep into this, but
So, okay, if I may, just stop me whenever you want. Under regular ARPA, the county received 8.2 million, which we have already received. And because you remember, you can't just mix that up with reserves because it is specific use. So last year, the commission approved about 2.5 million for capital projects. However, of that 2.5 million, 1.1 is not going to get done until next year. So I've carried that over. The next, again, regular ARPA, I'm looking at $1 million from the fiscal year 24 capital list that the committee met and made recommendations on. And then after that, about 4.6 million for the commission to earmark for detention center payroll and benefits. The total amount of that is 5.3 million. But when you look at the budget book, you'll probably notice in the front some boring language, like how we earmark PILT money. That's federal assistance. So just like with all this, we will disclose how the funding is tied to an expenditure so the auditors know how to test it for compliance. The reason why we're focusing on ARPA, regular ARPA, it's local recovery funding. It has to be obligated by December 31st, 2024. So, we discussed last year, supply chain issues, ordering all these emergency vehicles. Those are under contract, they're earmarked. Those are not a problem. We could fully expend it until December 31st, 2026. But to protect the county, I don't want to lose one penny. And so that's what I'll be formally recommending for public safety.
thank you. And
Short version.
if my quick math is correct, with what you've done there, that would leave us with basically 1.2 million of ARPA money that would still be there after this budget to apply prior to December of 24.
It's possible because between now and the end of June 31st, we'll be closing out multiple projects,
Sure.
the detention center. So, going high and putting it all towards detention center is a safeguard because that budget's about 5.3 million.
Gotcha.
But you're right, we would have an additional 6 months to find final projects.
Okay, perfect. You've answered my question. Thank you.
Good.
Any other questions, comments? As always, we appreciate the wealth of information, Christina, and we'll continue to chip away at this daunting budget process.
Yes.
But
I'll do that.
thank you
Okay,
for all of
thank
that.
you.
I think Mary has to present this.
I think she should. Last is the commissioner's budget. Let me see.
I've always been told, don't worry about it. You just go for a budget amendment. If you need more money.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were all on the email chain, but Cindy had reached out since she helps, or she does prepare this for us. Kind of asking for some feedback, so. I was just looking at travel and meals, we had a budget amendment that was required for that this year, so I tried to account a little more. There's one other one.
Well, what I might say is, I talked to John Espy and Terry Wolf, who are on that National Public Land Steering Committee, but it did cost me, I think, 3,500 to go to DC. That was a national meeting, the only one I've gone to. I've gone to one regional, one in Salt Lake. You're supposed to go to 2 regional and the 2 national. They have one in San Antonio this summer in July, but I don't know. I feel that I should go, but I'm thinking that I probably won't. I'll go to WIR in St. George this year and wherever it is next year, probably the regional one and probably the DC one again. So probably about the same as what has been spent this year as far as my public lands. And SB said he just puts a separate line in there for national committee travel, but I don't know. I'd say 5,000 should cover my commitment to that committee. If I do one regional, one national.
For travel and meals? Is that what you're referring to,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards?
I guess probably over the next year, a couple members of the Recreation Facility Committee, whether it be in the next year or the year after, but maybe the earlier the better, probably going to need to do a little travel to visit some shooting sports complexes and the ones in our western region that are accessible would be St. George, Price, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. And I don't know that we need to visit all of them, but if a couple members of the committee could make a loop and visit a few of them, it would probably help a lot in trying to figure out what we're trying to build. So we might need a little bit of more money in travel for that, though some of that could be in another budget besides commissioner. I'm not sure.
I think that county admin budget could be used potentially for some of that. That's, I don't know. Bonnie, would that be appropriate? Potentially if you got into that. If there were.
Or we just put it in Cindy's budget.
So this is travel for the people on that committee?
Yes.
Yeah, we could put it in the general county admin if that's where you feel it's appropriate.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Tillman?
I also forgot the Colorado River Working Group. I was gonna go this year, but I didn't get registered in time. I think somebody should go to that, whether it's me or somebody else.
Well, and I just kind of went back to the history, I mean, a couple years
Right.
ago, there was only 11,000 in there, so I just figured 3,000 a person, and as always, we can do a budget amendment, but
Well, COVID, we didn't do any travel for.
Right, it was really low for a little bit there.
What if we bump it up to 20 and then if we adjust down and we don't have to do a budget amendment? I said, what if we bump it up to 20? Which one?
Travel.
Travel.
I can do that if you want me to. Do you want me to put 20 in there? Do
And then we can do that group out of there if we need to.
you want to do that?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
any other areas you guys can see? I pretty much just try to match previous years.
Yeah.
There's some repairs and maintenance so that Lauren can have her own power cord in this desk and
What?
things like that.
Barry wants one too.
Do we need to put $119 into commissioner's equipment in case somebody needs another mini fridge?
I think that's just the gentleman on the ends. I do believe.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, I just noticed when I was comparing on the one that I had sent out 1,500 on repairs and maintenance, it had said increase to 3,000. I did not do that. So I just let Bonnie know that I missed that one somehow. So yeah, just so you know.
Yeah, and so part of that was,
Going-
I
I
had a
wasn't
few,
sure.
go ahead.
I just wasn't sure. I was like, I got them all, the other ones, but not that one. So
Yeah, that was been approached by a few different people on this room and how bare it looks. And so whether it's paint or photographs or whatever the case is, I also thought in the past, commissioners would have kind of a group photo. We've not done that, so that's where the professional services came in. Those are my ideas. I was spitballing because time was of the essence and I'm just trying to spruce up the room. That's my thoughts there. Any other comments, thoughts? Well, with that, we managed to finish up about 40 minutes ahead. I think. I don't know how you all feel about moving forward with the next workshops. If you have any general conversation you'd like to have today. I know some of us have been throwing some things around as far as, cost of living. What thoughts are with any, carryover, what we feel like our reserve should be. Maybe that doesn't have to happen today. But sometime soon, I think we all probably need to figure out what a general consensus is so we can start providing more direction and reconvening to make any cuts if necessary. Today was just kind of a thanks, see you later, but in my experience, I don't just like to hand out exactly what's requested. So at some point, we're going to have to dive into the details a little more, but does anyone have any feedback on that? Or is everyone over it?
I pretty much agree with you, Mr. Chairman.
I think the next step is to have conversation about what the priorities for carryover and all of that is. And reserves
And I guess I would ask you two, since you've been through it, I mean, do you guys normally wait until you're through this process? It's been done different over the years. I mean, are we still waiting for some numbers to come in so that it's a little more accurate, or?
So it's been done different through the years. Last year, we made those decisions and had that discussion beforehand. And then, I mean, as it gets closer to the end, when we have more numbers, then things will just start to adjust a little bit. But I think having a vision and a decision around, how much do we want to keep in reserves? Are we good where we're at, or do we need to get more in there, or, take some out? And then also looking at whatever the carryover is, are we, how are we going to utilize that? And then I think the COLA is another thing, because that's going to play off of, how we're going to build that out. And I mean, there's been discussions too over the years of, do we fund all the agencies first and then look at a COLA? Do we take care of our own employees first and give that, decide what we're going to do for a COLA and then fund agencies out, out of what's remaining? That was when things were really tight, that we had those discussions first, but I think that it doesn't hurt to have them. I almost wonder if we should just do a workshop in like late afternoon or something, one day next week or something in between, after everybody has time to process today
Okay.
and make those decisions.
I mean, it's kind of difficult because everyone's already submitted between county core, outside agencies and all that. But nonetheless, we can allow enough time to make those figures. You got any
I was
input?
gonna add, so this budget workshop was very full, it was a very full schedule. Our next ones, we're meeting with the component units and some of the outside agencies, the larger funded ones, and then the following one we'll just be meeting with the lower funded outside agencies. So we will have more time if you want to discuss these at budget workshops, at future budget workshops. Kind of what I was thinking for next time, we'll have it'll be about half as many people, the next two. So next time, kind of what I was thinking of addressing, but we can do whatever you want. I was thinking of doing grants, having Christina come in and talk more about the grants. Those do come out of the general fund, and have her give you her ideas. I know she has some ideas that she spoke about today about kind of that ARPA and using the ARPA money, and I kind of wanted to have her do that. I wanted to go over capital as well. I actually wanted to get that in today, but it just wasn't going to fit. We had a really full schedule. So I wanted to go through the capital list. The capital committee has prioritized that. So I thought those would be two good things to go over at the next one. The revenue numbers, we will have the mineral numbers by the next budget workshop for the month. So that could change our revenue projections some. And then Dave also gave me some numbers, his projections today. So we can work on some revenues. Something else that needs to come up at some point that needs to be discussed would be Senate File 60 and how we're going to do. I know it's been brought up about eliminating the mill levy, the number of mills for the component units. That's something that will need to be decided on before the budget resolution, because I include the number of mills in the budget resolution. So that will be a discussion that we'll need to have. And maybe I can have the treasurer come in and talk to you more about that. Is that something you would want to address next? budget workshop. That would take, in a meeting, it would have to be approved in a meeting, I would think to, I don't know, would that have to be approved in a meeting, John?
Yeah, because I mean, typically we're not.
Approved in a
about the-
meeting for, we're talking about changing the mill. Every year I do a mill levy calculation. If we go to 0 mills for the component units and just do budget appropriations for them, would that need to be approved in a, could we discuss it in a workshop and then approve it in a meeting? Would that be the most appropriate way to do it? Okay.
As long as we don't take action will have to be. through.
Yeah, there's no, you can't take action in a budget workshop, so. But that's something that needs to be addressed. I didn't know when or how you wanted to address that, but that definitely needs to be addressed. And there are some questions about how that's gonna work. Because the money that we've been collecting for the minerals is for the mill levy that we haven't set yet. So it's gonna change our carryover. So,
The other
we're
part
gonna-
of that, Bonnie, that I thought of after you and I talked yesterday.
okay,
Is as part of Senate File 60, there is a true up.
Right.
Once that mill levy is set. And
right,
That should have an impact on what we.
absolutely. But I'm thinking the true up, once we have that true up, if we change those component unit mill levies to 0, but their true up is gonna be 0, right?
At that point, once they were set it.
So it's a discussion we need to have, and I think as commissioners, you need to understand how it's gonna work and
Yeah.
what it affects. So
Think there'd be enough time to fit that in?
I think there would. Yeah, I think, like I said, just between the meetings, I think it's only gonna be a half as long next time.
Okay.
So yeah.
Try and plan for that next meeting too.
So do you want to do the mill levy? Senate File 60. So is that okay if I have Mark come in to talk about that? I was thinking, and then, are you okay doing the fixed assets, the capital?
I think so. Yeah. On with it.
Okay, and we'll do
Got tired,
grants
Mary.
too.
We're gonna wear her out this month.
Okay, and we'll do those last. I'll schedule everyone first because these things could throw us way off schedule.
Okay.
I have to get to St. George by morning that next day, so
Okay, so we'll go till 10:30 at night.
We're talking-
and there are no flights. So
Okay.
I'm trying to get everything in between 1:30 and 5. So, and I was thinking these next ones would be shorter.
Everyone good with that?
Anything else you want to discuss? So mill levy, Senate File 60, capital grants. And if you want to discuss, reserves, do we want to discuss reserves and
Carryover and COLA are the other 3.
reserves?
The reserves issue, if Mark and I can talk about the investment policy, it would be a good idea to have him bring in what we currently have. And do that because it is currently stated as part of policy that we want to maintain the reserves at $25 million. So at least we would have what is currently out there to discuss at that point in time also. If he would have been there.
And you want that during the budget workshop?
I was just thinking it might be a good idea. It would be appropriate in the same discussion.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Chairman? You want to do that later? It sounded like Mark wanted to do it later. And we've got that number anyway to start with.
say for the policy?
Yes. The last thing that the board did in the board meeting before I left, when I retired, the
Yeah.
board approved the investment policy along with the
right.
terms and then set, because actually I think Bonnie had suggested $15 million, a number. I suggested 20 to 22 million, and the board actually adopted 25 million.
Okay.
And that's the last time it's been acted on, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just didn't remember if it was a policy or if that was just the recommendation.
I've got a copy of it as well.
Okay.
I pulled the copy from Mark not too long ago and saw it.
Mr. Chairman, another thing I think we probably need to address is the days cash on hand, the agencies that we fully fund are carrying. I know they need to have some cash on hand, but if we're fully funding them, I think we should be carrying those reserves and they should be asking us for them rather than some of these have had upwards of 300 days cash on hand. And I'm not sure how appropriate it is. They're asking us for more money when they're
Right.
socking money away.
Completely agree. I've got one right now that has $1 million in reserves. So my question is, why even submit a budget? But we'll address that in a couple weeks. So yeah, we're gonna do it all in a couple weeks. How's that?
Next meeting.
We'll get through what we can, but I think that's a good plan to try, and if we go over, then we'll push it to the next. But if we can start with maybe the mill levy, the capital projects, Senate file, what else did you write down? COLA reserves.
Yeah. Reserves, investment policy, carryover, COLA, dash cash on hand, grants capital, mill levy / Senate file 60.
Perfect. Everyone good with that?
Mr. Chairman, I think I may have jumped the gun a little bit on Mark. I think he wants to take some time to redo the investment policy, but I do think it would be a good idea to look what's there currently.
Sure.
Before we change that. So.
Well, and you
we
can,
don't have to put any work into that to look at what's there, and then we can modify it, which is what he asked today.
right, and then you can give him suggestions once you understand what the current one is. It's not something that would need to be adopted well, it can't be adopted in a workshop anyway.
All right. We all good? Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Busy afternoon, busy day. Appreciate you putting all that together. And I guess